All right, I'm going to cover the nuts and bolts of the trip initially, and then I'm going to hand it over to Randy with the PowerPoint, but I kind of want to go over the format of what we're going to be doing. And like Nicole said, I'm Mariel Versluis. I teach in the drawing and the printmaking program, and that is the program that's going to be sponsoring this trip. So there will be credits that will be available both in drawing and in printmaking. That being said, this is not just for drawing or printmaking students. The processes that we're planning on using in Russia are very basic, and I'll get into why that is in a moment, but it's going to be something, we're going to use something called a jelly pad, which does not require a press. So that's a really significant aspect because we have to be mobile. Obviously, we're going to be traveling. The breakdown of the trip is we're going to spend, it's a 6-week course. We'll spend the first couple of weeks here at Kendall preparing for that. The second part of the trip is going to be spent in Russia, approximately 16 days. We're going to fly into Moscow, travel up to a town called Kostroma, where there's an orphanage, where we will be working with orphans, teaching and working in the orphanage, both printmaking and drawing projects, perhaps some other art projects as well. So that's going to be about 16 days in Russia, it breaks down to about 11 days in Kostroma, going back to Moscow, and then spending some time in Moscow looking at the sites there, such as the Tretyakov galleries and the Pushkin Museum of Art and some other features, Red Square, the Kremlin, St. Basil's Cathedral, which we have images of momentarily. So that's the breakdown of the trip. When we come back to the United States, we're going to organize an exhibition, because one of the points of printmaking, as you might know, is that it involves multiples. That's the best thing about printmaking, is that you can leave something behind and you can take something with you. And so we're going to have an exchange portfolio with the children at the orphanage. So this is very much an immersion program for Kendall students, because while we're there, we're going to be living with Russian families in Kostroma, which helps keep the costs down, but it also gives a really comprehensive experience for the Kendall student. So in preparation for that, the first part of the trip that's going to be at Kendall will be learning some basic Russian language skills. And both Randy and I have experience with Russian. I have a degree in it from undergrad, and Randy's been to Russia numerous times organizing trips like this. So we feel it's very important that we have some basic Russian language skills. It's very interesting language because it doesn't have the same alphabet that we do. It's a Cyrillic alphabet, so we're going to be covering that and how to read signs so that when we're in Moscow and you see metro, you know what it says and you know what the alphabets stand for. Also, when we're working with children, it's really important that you can know some basic phrases like отлично, which is excellent, and спасибо, thank you. So there are some basic elementary aspects that we're going to be covering before we go. We're also going to be preparing you guys with some literature. Some short stories by Turgenev will set the stage in terms of preparing you for the culture that's going to be there. So it's not like we're going to fly there and then fly out. This is very much an immersion experience. From many points of view, working with the children obviously is going to be a huge part of this. So that's about what I think I've got to say. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Randy now.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Randy Bouwer. Okay, so I said, hello, my name is Randy Bouwer. I taught here at Kendall Adjunct for 4 semesters. I got my master's here in 2009 in oil painting, and I have an undergrad degree in printmaking from about 30 years or so ago. So we're going to go to Russia, but I speak moderate Russian, so I can say «Доброе утро, я говорю много по-русски сейчас, ну ты просто крутой, мои подругис». I said I speak good morning, I speak lots of Russian, and you guys are all really cool. So what we'll do first is we'll get to Moscow, and then this is pretty self-explanatory, so why don't we let that roll and go ahead and follow that. A lot of these are frescoes from St. Basil's in the center of Moscow in Red Square. Then we'll go to Kostroma. It's located about 4 hours by train, 300,000 people, and it's historic because the monastery there coronated the Romanov dynasty. This is a city view. This is where we may stay in Kostroma while we're not with families. So just gives you an idea of the accommodations that you'll have. Some of the food that you may eat, and if you don't see anything delectable here, you may like this. Okay. So this is the monastery that we'll be working at. We'll have studio times. You'll be able to paint and draw or printmaking, get ideas for printmaking. And the icons, and there's so many treasures because Russia is just historic. Then we'll get to villages. We'll spend 2 or 3 days traveling out to villages where we'll do drawings and sketches and prepare for doing some work. I've done a lot of traveling, so logistics would be kind of my job, to keep you safe and make sure you get a good experience from Moscow, one of the world's biggest cities, to the villages that are remote. And again, this will just tell you again some of the requirements for the class. In Kostroma, we will have studio space that will be working. There's a local or a regional museum there, and you'd be amazed at the high quality and well recognized names of paintings and pieces of work in that museum. The orphanage that we're going to visit is called a social orphanage. It's not an orphanage where parents have both died. This is an orphanage where children go that are abandoned, or the parents may be alcoholics or abusive. In Russia, there's more than 1 million children living in these orphanages, which are also serving as schools. So the 4 or 5 days that we'll be working there, we'll be giving the education during that time.
Yeah, and we estimate the cost of this trip to be anywhere from $3,200 to $3,600, depending once again on airfare for this, and that includes the 16 days that are in Russia and the visa as well. So we're trying to keep the cost down by living with Russian families as much as possible, and that really reduces the cost quite a bit as well. So when we come back, I expect some follow-up as well regarding some films that are relevant to your experience that you would have in Russia as sort of a closure episode when we come back. So if you have any questions about it, I will have handouts over there. So I think that's it.